We are here today again on the Grace Auburn Church podcast, and I am so incredibly excited to have on the podcast today my friend Ray Hornsby and Addie Beatty. Welcome both of you to the Grace Auburn Church podcast. We are excited about the series we're in on the podcast, specifically looking at where are the people of Grace Auburn involved in the community? Where are they taking their giftings, not only are their passions, not only in serving within the church on Sunday morning, but how and where are we involved in the community? And that's led to a list of organizations that are either outwardly gospel-oriented or not so outwardly gospel-oriented, but that are doing meaningful work in the community. And so I know you two are incredibly passionate and excited to talk about Women's Hope today. The work that they do in our community, it goes without saying that there is a very real need for organizations, churches, individuals to stand in the gap in protecting unborn life, regardless of whether that was planned or not in terms of pregnancy coming about. And so you don't have to look very far in our day to find a whole host of media news on all sorts, all ends of that spectrum. But before we get into Women's Hope, just to orient people around who you guys are, Ray, I'd love for you to start with just a little bit about you and your family, how you got to Grace Auburn, however you want to share about you and your family.
Well, obviously, my name's Ray Hornsby, and me and my wife have been coming to Grace Auburn for 2 years. We became members, I think, about 7 or 8 months after we started attending Grace.
Yeah.
I have 3 children. Me and my wife both are small business owners in our community, and we have daughters that are, one's at the University of Alabama, one's going to Troy. We love Grace, and we love the mission of the church, and we just love God's Word. We just want to do whatever we can do to be faithful to Him.
I love that. Addie, for those who don't know you, a little bit about you.
Okay. I'm Addie. I am married to John Beatty, who's on staff at Grace. He does the student ministry, so the 6th through 12th grade.
Mm-hmm.
We both went to Auburn University and just never left. So we started coming to Grace in fall of 2019. Became members soon after that. We had our first son in April of last year, James. And that kind of plays into why Women's Hope after becoming a mom.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm a new mom, and I serve on the worship team and sometimes in kids ministry too.
Okay. Well, thank you both for being here. I'm excited about our conversation. Addie, it'd be helpful, I think, if someone's new to Auburn or they've not yet heard of Women's Hope, if you've been here long enough, it becomes one of those household names from a ministries standpoint that sometimes I know if you hear something, so many times, it kind of becomes white noise if it's not something you're involved in. Mm. I'd love for, whether that's the case for someone or they're brand new to Auburn and they don't know anything about Women's Hope, can you give us a snapshot? And I'll ask questions. We can kind of have this as a conversation, just an overview of who Women's Hope is, what they do. We'll get into y'all's involvement, but just kind of big picture of the ministry itself.
Okay, I'll do my best. I first heard about Women's Hope when I was in college in nursing school, so I know that they have some partners with the university, and just we're in a really unique situation where not only just our local moms, but also international moms that come in that don't necessarily have resources are able to, look up where to go when you have a positive pregnancy test and Women's Hope comes up. So I've heard it referred to as a crisis pregnancy center, but they're way more than that. They are able to do those pregnancy tests, do ultrasounds. They can do other testing on the clinic side. And then they're also able to counsel moms that come in that are unsure if they're wanting to keep the pregnancy.
Right.
And it is a very openly pro-life organization, so they're able to not steer them in one direction,
sure,
steer them in another.
Right.
And then when moms choose to parent, or if they choose to put them up for adoption, they have an adoption program that they also have, and they have a parenting program. So if they come through the clinic side and they choose to parent, both the mom and the dad can then be paired with volunteers to help them through that, whether it's their first pregnancy or their fourth pregnancy, like whether it's just a financial need or resource need. They're able to go through the program, which I think they follow them up to 24 months.
Sure.
And then get practical things, right? Like diapers and all the things that's required for a baby.
Right,
Now
right.
that they have chosen to keep this little one, like all the things practically that they need, they're able to come alongside them and help them get. And then from a volunteer standpoint, that means just getting to be a friend and a mentor, and honestly, like learning a lot more from them than I could ever share with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of big picture, maybe.
Yeah, no, tremendously helpful. Ray, Addie, we're going to come back to you specifically in just a minute in terms of your background. Obviously, you mentioned nursing school, the decision and having James, your firstborn, to what's next for you. We'll get to that in just a minute. Ray, I'd love to hear your kind of being led to Women's Hope. How'd you get involved? What is that for a man who, does the things that you do in our community, fixing air conditioners, selling air conditioners, plumbing, all the things that your company does? How did the Lord lead you to Women's Hope?
Well, I had heard about Women's Hope from a family that I was friends with. Their daughter, she worked there. She was a registered nurse. And for me, when I think sometimes the Lord can use pain in your life, and a passion can be born out of that. And we lost our son in 2021, and I had heard of Women's Hope, and when Roe versus Wade got turned over, I just could not help but I contacted Daria at Women's Hope, and I was just like, I just feel like I'm being called to help protect this place. And she said, that is so great, because we've had threats.
Yeah, sure.
That people were going to do things. So me and some other guys, we set up there around the clock, had people sitting in the parking lot around the clock, and the Lord willing, nothing happened.
Yes.
And it was such a blessing. And my family, I think everybody has these passions or things that they just really believe in, and I think the Lord calls us to those things. And mine is just trying to help in the community to organize resources for Women's Hope, trying to let people know about Women's Hope, whether that's adoption, whether that's preventative measures, or whether that's just donating money. And I just think biblically for everybody, I think about the words of James, but someone will say, "You have faith, and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by my works."
Yeah.
I just don't know how you cannot have both of those. And in Romans 1, chapter 1, the King James Version says that I am a debtor. The other says I am obligated. I mean, I feel like after this great news that I've been given and I've been saved and have peace with God, that how can I not go spread this, whether it's through Women's Hope or whether it's through the church? I just cannot not do it.
One of the things I'm excited about for this conversation is that if when you read about an abortion clinic, or when you read about pro-life clinics, or things like Women's Hope, and I know Women's Hope is getting into a lot of new territory in terms of the things they're doing, in terms of providing care for moms and the unborn, so many times it is somewhere out there for most people, right? But the reality is, on any given Sunday morning, or in your community group, or if you're a college student in your classroom, there's someone that that's made that decision, or has been tempted to make that decision, or who has said yes to life. And so one of the things I want to do in this conversation is bring it back to our community, and say not specifically in terms of individuals, but to bring it back to, I want anyone listening to the podcast to realize this is so much closer than you think it is. It's not just something on Fox News or on MSNBC in very different directions, right? So that's why I'm excited for this conversation. I'm excited for you guys to share what you're passionate about. Addie, walk us through the Lord leading you into that nursing school, kind of to where you are today.
Yeah, I am passionate about pregnant women. I love pregnancy. I think that is just the most amazing miracle ever. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm a labor and delivery nurse of 3 years now at East Alabama. And like I said, I had heard about Women's Hope in school, but there's just, I don't know if inequipped is the word, but there was I knew I needed to walk through pregnancy and motherhood first before I could put my yes on the table of serving at Women's Hope in whatever way that they needed.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things that you just don't know until you've experienced it, and you have been up at 2 a.m. in the morning, or you have changed countless diapers and you're just crying for no reason. So it wasn't until after we had our son that I put my yes on the table, and it first looked like just saying, hey, I have a bunch of extra diapers, like, where do I take these?
Yeah.
And then that led me to get in touch with their motherhood director, Susan, and I just said, hey, like, I just had a baby, but I can strap him on if I can come and talk to some moms. So there's a background check process and an interview process, and then what their need is like 4-hour chunks of time.
Yeah.
We go on Monday, so we actually went today.
Okay.
And I'm able to bring James with me right now, which is just fun that the moms that I get to talk to see me continuing to do life. Like, it doesn't stop just because you have a baby.
Right.
It gets so much richer and sweeter, a little bit more complicated, but it's still really fun. So, yeah.
Yeah. So Addie's entry into Women's Hope, obviously being a mom, obviously also being a nurse, a labor and delivery nurse. You're around that world a whole lot. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Or
Yes.
Okay.
I think I got my brain.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
I've always known that I'm pro-life, and I didn't realize the sacrifice that I'm asking some of these moms to make by saying yes to having this baby.
Yeah.
So for me, that looked like practically stepping into the gap. It was being able to love on them in the depths of postpartum.
Yeah.
Because that's really hard. We're asking them to keep this baby and then to raise them.
Yeah.
And it's really hard if you don't have somebody that's walking next to you and sharing the hope that we have in the gospel in Christ, and that you're not doing it alone. So, I think that's what I was forgetting to say.
No, I love that you said that, because, I think we could take for granted the decision for a woman who, depending on her isolation, depending on her community, she may be thinking things she's never thought, right? I know that's true in choosing to keep the baby in postpartum and raise a child, but you think the first decision is, okay, Lord, I'm in a situation that I did not picture myself being in. And maybe she's not saying, God, I don't know what to do. Maybe she's desperate, just someone help me. And I think Women's Hope finds itself so oftentimes at the intersection of where the first decision is, do I keep this, do I bring this baby to breathing, right? Not to life, because we know life begins much sooner than breathing, but do I carry this baby to term, and then along the way decide, do I want to put this baby up for adoption or keep and raise this child as my own, even though he or she was not in my plans? Obviously, right. Lord, you're bringing this little person into the world, but there's a previous decision that they make. And so when we think about pro-life, we want to continue saying it might be awful circumstances,
right,
as to how this happened. Let's just say that, right? Sometimes it's, ill-prepared accident or whatever. You pick your words that people use. Sometimes it's something tragic that happens to the mother. And I think without getting into the specifics and explicit nature of that, regardless of how conception happens, that baby is now alive, right? And so I want, Ray, I'd love to hear kind of you share a little bit of your passion, not only for the organization, but for, as a man, a business owner, a father, as a husband. What does Women's Hope mean to you? I know you talked about when everything with Roe got turned over and how important that next few weeks was, and how uncertain that was, especially for a pro-life clinic, medical clinic, adoption center, all the things that Women's Hope is. What's that experience been like for you from a care for, volunteer in, give to the ministry? You're not a mom, you're not a nurse. What's that look like for you?
Well, I think as a father, when I look back, kind of when my wife and I first got married, there was a level of love that I experienced with my wife. But I think when you become a father and you hold your child for the first time, I know for me, and I think a lot of people, whether they realize it or not, it's a point in time when you realize there's something in your arms that you're going to love more than yourself. But I think even deeper inside of that is a picture of who our Heavenly Father is.
Yeah.
And for a dad who has held his first son in his hands, and I lost my first son, that I understand and that level of love on two fronts. One is saying, hey, I would lay down my life for you, but I never had that opportunity to also do that for my son. So that's kind of where a passion was born for Women's Hope. And there's a part of me, kind of like we're talking about these decisions that people make, and whether conception was, a conscious decision, or it was some of the words, like you said, accidents or whatever, or a tragic situation, is that it's still alive.
That's right.
And it's a life that our Father loves, our Heavenly Father, and it's a life that I think sometimes as a body of believers that we need to come alongside the mother in her decision to keep or adopt, and we need to do everything in our power to find a place for this life.
Yeah.
And I just don't know. I don't know how now in my life I can not do that.
That's good.
It doesn't make sense to me. And I want everybody to feel that way. And I think if you have children, there's a picture of our Father, whether it's repeating yourself time after time as a dad, because as a dad, that's your job. But as a dad, it's our job to protect and to love. And I love Women's Hope, and I want to protect it, and I want other people to come alongside and help with that mission. And I just can't wait to see that happen further.
And so, in so many ways, you really serve as a megaphone for what they're doing, right? Like that's how. If I had to explain to someone what you're doing for Women's Hope, it's like in as many different ways as possible, you're trying to tell people, as an evangelist for Women's Hope, like this is how God is using this ministry. Is that an accurate description?
Yes, of course. Yes, I want everybody to know about it, and I want everybody to understand the importance and the value of it. I think of it as a light in the darkness.
Yes, good.
Is that it's a place that sometimes in some dark circumstances when a girl goes, hey, I'm scared, I don't know what to do, that there's a place you can go that's going to not only show you the gospel, but it's going to help you protect this life and find an avenue for this life to go and grow, no matter what that decision is.
Yeah.
And there's a path, there's a place, there's a safe place with loving arms waiting to wrap you up.
Yeah, that's good. I want to get into the specifics of Women's Hope from start to finish a little bit here, Addie. And again, I'm not putting you on the spot to be like the expert on all things Women's Hope. I also want to circle back on in saying something is accidental. That's from a human vantage point, right? Mm-hmm. So I use that as an example of words are sometimes chosen in a way that isn't actually true. Sometimes we say things, and from our perspective, it appears like it was an accident or a mistake, or think about how many number of lies a woman can hear in that dark place kind of on her own, right? When in reality, the Lord is sovereign and good over all life. And so that is true for someone who's trying to make that first decision. Do I not tell anyone and terminate this pregnancy, or do I carry it out all the way to term and bring this child into the world and then decide, am I capable of caring for her? So I think what I'd love to get a picture of, and you guys can kind of fill each other's words in here a little bit, right? Of in the Lee County area, I know there are organizations on campus that try to resource and connect college girls in different places. But as far as I know, Women's Hope is the pro-life center for Lee County, Auburn, Opelika. Is that correct? In terms of, are there other organizations? I'm not entirely sure.
There's baby steps.
So that's what I'm talking about on campus.
But they only do on campus. That's right. Yes.
And in some ways, they're trying to house girls and really bring that same mission, different context, a little bit narrower in its scope. Women's Hope being a variety of socioeconomic backgrounds, demographics, anybody and everybody from the community, including if you're a college girl on campus and trying to make those decisions, right. This is a resource as well. So I would say Women's Hope is comprehensive in its scope in the community. let's try to paint a picture of what all they do. So that's moving in a lot of directions, right? Ray's got notes. Let's make sure we get into all of it. Addie, why don't you kick us off in terms of the side of Women's Hope you work in? What's the other side of Women's Hope?
Yeah.
We can get into adoption and housing and a whole host of that in a minute, but why don't you kick us off?
Okay. So there's two sides. And two physical different locations. They're right side beside each other. So there's the clinic that's on the upper side, and that's where women go if they need a pregnancy test or if they already have confirmed their pregnancy and they just need to continue prenatal care and come and get ultrasounds and have a doctor see them. There's some numbers that Ray has if you want to give those of the clinics at, I think.
Yeah, so in 2024, Women's Hope Medical Clinic, there was 819 unique clients served, 636 pregnancy tests, 383 ultrasounds. There was 18 prenatal visit clinics, 2,1314 individual parenting appointments where they educate parents in classes, and they can earn reward points to get clothes and diapers and formulas. 170 attended group classes. There was 522 fatherhood appointments, which was very encouraging. There was 528 clients heard the gospel. And many people made a decision to follow Christ. There was 43 clients were at risk for abortion, but ultimately they chose life. So amen to that.
So the second half of those statistics is like the other side of Women's Hope. So there's the medical clinic, and then when they choose to parent, they can join that parenting program, and it does have the motherhood and fatherhood directors. There's even a Spanish-speaking director.
Nice.
So we're able to meet with them. Like Ray said, they can shop, so they watch videos that help them practically, like what is happening in my pregnancy right now, or what is happening as I'm parenting this toddler right now. What do I do when I start experiencing this symptom or whatever? And then they're able to meet with a client volunteer, which is what I do. In that conversation, we answer questions about the videos and just like, what does it mean to be a mom? But then a lot of it is just getting to know who that person is, who that mom is, what they come in with, what their full story is. And it has just been amazing to interact with people that I would have never interacted with had I not been there and had these people not became pregnant, honestly.
Right.
So they're able to chat with us for a little bit, and then they earn like Monopoly money, essentially little Women's Hope money that they're able to buy diapers and clothes and resources that they need. So they get a car seat when they finish part of the program, and then if the dad goes through the program, I think they also do like a baby bed. So big ticket things that are definitely necessary for a baby.
Okay, so clinic, then the parenting classes and all the things, and that's the side of it that you work in and serve in. What about adoption? Like, what do they have on the radar? I know Daria has thrown all kinds of things your way in terms of what they're looking at, what's on the horizon, what do they hope to do in the future?
Right.
Yes, they do. They have a law firm out of Montgomery that can help facilitate adoptions, which is really awesome. And one of the things that they're really struggling with, imagine if you play any type of game, there's some tactics where you're losing at.
Sure.
And here's one example that they're losing is that people come in and they say, hey, we have no resources. We have parents that say, if I don't do this, they're going to kick me. I have nowhere to live.
Yeah.
And so, imagine that as a person, you don't have anywhere to go or you don't have any money financially. And, as a culture, that's something we definitely grip to. And Women's Hope is trying to raise resources to try to either build a building or try to find a place to house girls in Lee County so they'll have time to get on their feet, attend these classes, and hopefully the dads are involved in this too. And because we don't want to lose any life because someone goes, hey, I don't have enough money.
Yeah. Or
I can't live. And the unique thing about Lee County is that we live in a place that is very expensive to live in.
Yeah, no doubt.
Rent costs are not cheap. And it's always a hurdle. But we live in a very rich community where I think the resources are there. And if people just knew, I think that they would be willing to step up to the plate.
Yeah, okay. That's fantastic. I think regardless of your expertise, education, I think one of the goals of this series of the podcast is to educate and inform. Another is to share real stories. I don't know, man. I know, Ray, you shared the story of, talking with Daria about, hey, we're just going to be present and make sure nothing goes down after Roe was overturned. Obviously, in confidentiality, are there any other stories? Is there anything that comes to mind? Is there anything you'd love to share? Maybe for somebody who's trying to figure out. I'd love to know, like, tangibly, what does that mean? What does that look like? How was I involved? I know you talked about counseling. Counseling not necessarily from a licensed biblical counselor kind of perspective, right? Maybe if there's something that comes to mind, is there something else you guys would want to share? The last question I'll ask is ways people could or should get involved, or ways that you would encourage people to get involved beyond praying for Women's Hope and all the things that they're doing. Is there anything story-wise that comes to mind? You got one? All right, yeah, go.
I think just I didn't expect to interact with people from as different backgrounds as I do.
Yeah.
I think I kind of forgot that the university has such a broad scope of cultures and countries, and a lot of our clients, and specifically I feel like I have been getting a large number of clients whose husbands or either they themselves are in like the grad program. Mm-hmm. So like highly educated women, and they're from like places all over, and a lot of the moms that I'm meeting with right now are Muslim women. And so getting to like learn about their culture and how that relates to pregnancy and postpartum. It's just been really sweet to learn how I can best love them and what does it look like to talk about the gospel with them. What does it look like to talk about Jesus with them?
Yeah, I love that.
So not in like a pressure way, but just it has just opened who I thought I would ever interact with. I'd never thought I would interact with Muslim women, and
I love that.
So that's what I'm doing.
Well, and I think the wonder of that is for some of them, whether they're married or not, or you talk about their husbands are in the grad program, or they're in the grad program, possibly, they may never hear the gospel apart from this pregnancy. Yeah. Especially if they're here for a short term and they're going back to wherever they're from. It'd be amazing to know, and maybe we won't know this side of heaven, but it'd be amazing to know that whatever seeds are planted in and through something like Women's Hope carried itself back to the Middle East or North Africa or Southeast Asia, and it was because someone said, you know what, I'm going to give 4 hours a week.
Exactly.
And I'm going to give what I have, which is Jesus, and in your case, you have your motherhood, you have your nursing degree and experience. I think the same could be true for anyone praying for, wanting to serve, wanting to help raise money for, holding up the speaker, so to speak, on all things. This is what Women's Hope does. That's exciting to me to know that the gospel, and this is what I think the beauty of the church in a community is that when people put their yes on the table, the church really is an unstoppable force. And it's because the Spirit of God, through the people of God, does the will of God in a way that never returns void. And it's meant to continue doing what it's doing until Jesus comes back. So I love that. Ray, do you have any final thoughts? Anything else you want to share about Women's Hope or your experience there?
Yeah, I always think about that if you look at the Bible as a whole, that from the garden to now, that God was on a rescue mission to save his children.
Yeah.
And Women's Hope is on that.
Mm-hmm.
That same mission that's in the Bible, that's on every page that points to Jesus Christ, Women's Hope are trying to save children.
Yeah.
And I've seen the stories of women who walked in that wanted to get an abortion, fathers that wanted to get an abortion, and their hearts were changed by that news and by that gospel.
Yeah.
And now they have babies and they hold them and they're being taught how to be parents, because a lot of them came from environments where nobody was never really a good parent to them. And just like I quoted from Romans chapter 1, I think we're obligated to that.
Yeah.
I think we're debtors to that. And that's we need to be part of that rescue mission.
Yeah. In so many ways, the church, while it has changed forms, the church has always been responsible for caring for widows and orphans. It's always been responsible for caring for new life. And we live in a day where technologically, well before a baby comes into this world, you have decisions to make. Women have decisions to make over the last 60 years that in all of previous human history, we weren't making in the same ways that we're making now. And so it does my heart good to know that Women's Hope is in our community as a city on a hill, as part of the community of believers here in the Auburn and Opelika area. And it does me so much, it brings me so much joy to know that we have members who are involved. Is there a specific, do you guys know of a specific way people can get involved? I know, obviously, resources, funding, that sort of stuff is a way people can be involved. Counseling with those who choose to bring a child in and parent that child and keep that child. Is it? Do you know if it's clear on the website? Should we send them to? I think I saw on their website there is a form asking for information. So we'll put in the show notes the link to Women's Hope, maybe to their Facebook as well, and any other pertinent information. Is there anything else you guys have, just kind of in sharing? Is there anything else you want to say?
I feel like I've talked to Raina a little bit about this, but that at some point I'm not going to be able to carry James anymore with me. So a loving thing may be like taking care of other moms' kids while they go for that 4-hour time. Okay. So I don't know if we need like a group me childcare situation.
Maybe so. That sounds like something. That sounds like something Raina should organize at the end of this conversation.
Because you're a mom and you have kids doesn't mean that you can't step away and go be a client advocate or go be a mom.
Yes.
Sometimes you just need help with childcare.
Yeah, especially if they're little or if you homeschool and they're in the home all the time.
I think there's several different ways that people can give. I mean, one, obviously you can give your resources, but I think some people, like in this church, we have a heart for adoption and fostering children, and I think that's one way. Another way is people can just donate their time and counseling. Mm-hmm. There's some people that have the resources, like I just said, I'm just reiterating that you can donate that. And also in just education. You can fill out these forms and come help education, because I think about a lot of the letters that Paul wrote in the New Testament. Paul was trying to tell the church that culture's always going to be going against church values. Yeah. And when we go back to in the beginning, we were talking about people using the words, hey, this was an accident. Well, a lot of times it was a decision that was made because culture had changed your heart and what you believed in. And as a church, there's ways we can stand in that and fight for that, and we should. Yeah.
The church at its best is always countercultural. And I think if that is true, and I believe that it is, and it's meant to be a city on a hill, it's meant to say we are not going to be conformed to the pattern of this world. We are going to be transformed by the renewing of our mind, by the renewing of our very lives. That is abundantly true for those of us who stand in the gap with folks who are bringing babies into this world and need help and need just kind of a place to launch from into a world that might have been against them at one point, or a family situation where they're trying to figure out if, like you said, if I keep this child, then I'm no longer allowed to live in my home. There are homes, right? And it could be that it's housing a mother for a season. It could be that it is adoption. So many of our organizations that we're going to talk with over the course of this series are in that avenue of foster care and adoption, and Women's Hope is another one of those. So, guys, thank you so much. This was a ton of fun for me. I hope it was fun for you. Addie, you made it and didn't cry. This was such a gift. This was such a gift. Thank you guys so much. Again, we'll have links in the show notes. We'll have ways for you to get involved. You guys are a gift. Thank you for all you do. Thank you. On behalf of the Grace Auburn Church family, thank you for listening to the Grace Auburn Church podcast. If you'd like more information about partnering with us and our mission or ways that you can get connected, please go to our website, graceauburn.church.